Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the One Man Huddle. I'm your host Jason, and today we have a jam-packed episode full of stuff. We've got the Thanksgiving Day games breakdowns. We've got a couple of additional injuries to bring up for the games on Sunday slash Monday night, and we're going to talk about the rest of the Week 13 predictions and analysis. So well, why don't we go ahead and get into it? And we'll start with an injury that happened yesterday in the Thanksgiving Day games. Lions wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown went down on, I think, the fourth play of the game on a run play with an ankle injury, and he did not return uh, for the rest of the game. Dan Campbell said after the game he may miss a week or two, maybe, if we're lucky, is what he said. Something to keep an eye on with the Lions on the fringe of playoff eligibility. They're currently outside looking in, so we'll see what they decide to do if he misses some time. It was reported yesterday that Colts quarterback Daniel Jones is dealing with a fractured fibula, but he is expected to play on Sunday with the Colts squarely in the playoff picture. He doesn't want to miss any time if possible. Definitely something to keep an eye on, though. I saw a clip from him in practice, and he does have a noticeable limp, or he did yesterday. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on as they're going against, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they're going against the Texans this week, which is the number one defense in yards per game allowed. They get after the quarterback very often. Another quarterback who had some injury news this week, Giants quarterback Jackson Dart cleared concussion protocol. He's expected to play Monday night against the Patriots. So he'll bring a good burst of energy back to that Giants team coming off of a heartbreaking loss last week in overtime against the Lions. That was led by Jameis Winston. So we'll see what Jackson Dart's able to do against that Patriots defense come Monday night. Uh, Steelers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, another quarterback injury update. He was a full participant in practice on Thanksgiving with a left wrist fracture. He didn't play last week, but looks like he will play this week against the Bills. A big boost for the Steelers offense after seeing Mason Rudolph play last week. Not that he played bad, but Aaron Rodgers, their QB1, he's got the most reps with the first team. We'll see how that plays out for him on Sunday. Now, let's get into the Thanksgiving Day games. We're just going to have a few quick recaps here. The Packers versus the Lions was the first game to kick off our Thanksgiving slate yesterday, and it delivered. Jordan Love looked good. Jared Goff looked good. The difference in the game, fourth down conversions, in my opinion. The Packers went 3 for 3. The Lions went 0 for 2. I know there were a couple of questionable calls. It happens every game. I feel like these 3 games yesterday, the calls were more they were under more scrutiny because it was Thanksgiving Day and everybody was watching these games. There weren't games going on at the same time that had people split. Everybody saw it, so I feel like they were under more scrutiny with these 3 games, and that just like they will be for the game later today when I'm recording this, it's mid morning on Black Friday, so the Bears Eagles game has not kicked off yet or anything like that. If you want to see my predictions for that game, check out Wednesday's episode. I talk about these 3 games that I'm going over here and the game later today. Josh Jacobs being back for the Packers, it was a nice boost. Not that Emmanuel Wilson didn't do his job last week when Jacobs was out. He played fantastic. It's just you get your starting running back in the game, and it gives that team a boost of confidence. So, on the flip side, though, on the Packers defense, Micah Parsons recorded 2.5 sacks against Jared Goff to slow down that Lions offense just enough to hang on to win that game on Thanksgiving. The Lions now sit outside the playoff picture, like I mentioned earlier, talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're going to have to make up some ground here down the stretch if they want to have a chance to fight for that Lombardi trophy later this year. Let's move on to the second game, the game that I thought was game of the day for Thanksgiving, Chiefs versus The Cowboys offense did exactly what it showed that can do at points in the season by just everybody clicking. The wide receivers, the tight ends, the running backs, and the quarterback all playing fantastic football. Dak shook off an early interception to lead his team to take down both of last year's Super Bowl teams in the span of 4 days. They just beat the Eagles on Sunday, and then they turn around and beat the Chiefs on Thursday on Thanksgiving in front of the whole world. I'm impressed. They are essentially fighting for their playoff lives. They could win out and still not even make the playoffs, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. They would end with an 11-5-1 record, I think. That tie with the Packers is really, I believe, looming large at this point. If they had turned that into a win, we would be talking about a very different situation, I think, for the Packers. CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens showed out. They combined for 13 catches, 200 yards, and a touchdown. They played out of their minds. CeeDee Lamb must have heard that I was saying George Pickens may have taken over his wide receiver 1 role, and CeeDee Lamb absolutely showed out yesterday. So, great job by both of those guys. They looked fantastic. Patrick Mahomes looked good as well. Not dissing him. He did play well. But he had a couple of receivers drop some very big passes that could have really changed how this game ended. I think if Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice hold on to a couple of passes that they dropped, this game goes the other way and the Chiefs do win. I think that was the difference. And before anybody says, oh, the refs called bad penalties on Kansas City, please just shut up and go back and watch any of their games in the last 5 years, and you'll see they've been on the opposite side of that for about 5 years now. Everybody except for Chiefs fans seems to feel that way. There's bad calls in literally every single game. It happens. The Chiefs now sit in an incredibly tough spot to even make the playoffs this year. They're sitting behind the Chargers, the Jaguars, the Bills, who they have lost to, so they lose the head-to-head, and they're already 2 games back without the head-to-head, so they're technically about 3 games back when you look at it that way, with only 5 games left in the season. They also sit behind the Texans, who they haven't played, but they do play next week in Week 14, and if they lose that game, they're done. They're not making the playoffs. That's just how it is. I know they won't be mathematically eliminated just immediately following that game, but the probabilities say they're not making it. The probabilities already say they're not making it. I think their playoff chances are down to less than 30% right now, which is a very, very tough hill to climb. So losing those games against the Chargers, the Jags, and the Bills looming large. If they had won just one of those games, things would be a little bit different, but losing all of those games, I know they play the Chargers one more time towards the end of the season, but they sit in a really tough spot here, and it's kind of shocking, really, coming from not winning a Super Bowl, but being in a Super Bowl last year to not even making the playoffs the year after is a pretty significant drop. I don't know if it's fatigue from playing in so many games over the past few years. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know. I don't think it's players, for the most part at least. They have some questions on their offensive line, of course, with penalties and holding calls seeming to be more and more frequent as the season goes on. But they have to figure something out. They have to win out from this point on, I believe, to even have a shot to make the playoffs. And even with winning out, I don't think that they do make it. I just don't see any of those teams ahead of them dropping enough games to fall out of the playoffs. Anyway, let's move on to the game that a lot of people were really looking forward to on the Sunday night football, Thursday night football special edition, whatever you would like to call it. Bengals versus the Ravens, AFC North matchup. Joe Burrow returns on Thanksgiving Day after being out multiple weeks. He looked like he didn't miss a beat. He came out slinging, and he looked pretty good. Even without his wide receiver 2, T. Higgins, out there, who was out with a concussion from last week. he led them to a huge win over the Ravens to kind of keep their season alive, though even winning out, very high chance they don't make the playoffs, though their division is competitive. The Steelers sit in first place at 6-5. The Ravens sit at 6-6. The Bengals sit at 4-8. So they're only 3 games back if the Steelers win on Sunday. It'll be interesting to see if the Bengals can win out. If they can, is it enough to get them in the playoffs? Well, that remains to be seen. One of the things that helped Joe Burrow in his return was that he had a complimentary run game with Chase Brown and Samaje Perine. They ran the ball fairly well. Meanwhile, Lamar Jackson, you got some explaining to do, my guy. Throwing a pick, losing 2 fumbles against the worst defense in yards per game this season is kind of inexcusable, if you ask me. I know that sounds crazy, coming from a guy sitting at a desk in his man cave, but you're hanging in the playoff balance, and you go out and you have a game in front of the whole world in prime time like that. I don't know, man. I'm starting to have my doubts about this Ravens offense. Not necessarily one player in particular, but just as a whole. And we already know their defense was a little shaky at the beginning of the season. They got a little bit better, and then last night they just couldn't stop Joe Burrow. They looked like a completely different team. And I'm assuming Joe Burrow coming back for the Bengals defense was a huge boost of their confidence. Thinking, oh, if we play a good game and we keep our offense in this game, we could go and win this game. And they dominated. 32-14, I believe, was the final score. Just absolutely dominated. Another big piece was the clock control. They held the ball for over 38 minutes on offense. And it helps when the other team has 5 total turnovers. That really helps. The Ravens I don't think they're making the playoffs this year either, along with the Chiefs. And if the Bills continue the way they look, they won't make it either, which is crazy to think the Bills, Ravens, and Chiefs may not make the playoffs this year. Kind of crazy. Crazy times. I personally don't think that the Bengals run the table and get in the playoffs, but time will tell with Joe Burrow back leading that offense. Now, I'm not going to talk about the Black Friday game, which I was informed. I said it was the first ever Black Friday game, and apparently we had one last year, but I don't remember it at all. It must have been very not good. I didn't even go back and look it up because I already said that it was the first ever game this year, and that's wrong. So I accept that was wrong. My apologies. So we're going to go straight into the Sunday games, and then we'll talk about Monday Night Football at the end. The first game on the list here, Jaguars versus Titans. I really don't know what to think about this game. The Jaguars are so inconsistent. I said this last week. They've just been inconsistent all season. They'll go and beat a team that they had no business beating, and then turn around and lose to a team they had no business losing to. Trevor Lawrence has been up and down like a roller coaster this season. So if you pair that inconsistency along with how the Titans played last week, if they play like they did last week against Seattle, we have a close game on our hands, I think. Trevor Lawrence needs to figure out what's going on and hang on to this playoff spot that they're sitting in. They're right there for the division potentially, especially with the Colts losing last week. They have a shot to be within a game and a half, I believe, of the Colts. The Titans offense showed flashes last week with rookie wide receiver Xavier Restrepo making his debut. He played at Miami with Cam Ward, so it gives Cam Ward a familiar face to throw to that he trusts. I don't know why this guy hasn't played up until this point, especially when your rookie quarterback knows this guy. He knows his tendencies. He knows he has that chemistry. I really don't understand what the Titans were thinking not having him out there before going 1-10 to start the season. Anyway, Titans special teams has been outstanding for most of this year behind their punt returner Jameer DK. He had a punt return touchdown last week. That was his second punt return touchdown of the season. He leads the league in punt return touchdowns so far this year. So if this game is close and Trevor Lawrence is having one of those games where he's up and down, up and down, up and down, and they get something like a big punt return, whether it be for a touchdown or just to give the Titans really good field position to start the drive, this game could flip, I believe, to be a Titans win, which would devastate the Jaguars' chances to make the playoffs, I think, because their strength of victory is going to plummet. I'm going to go with the Jags here. I think Trevor Lawrence has a bounce-back game. He has a decent game. That should be enough to beat the Titans. But this game's going to be closer than it should be on paper, I believe. So, be on the lookout for a Titans potential upset if Trevor Lawrence has a bad game. Next game on the list here, 49ers versus the Browns. I think this game actually has potential to be pretty good. Myles Garrett, if he continues to be an absolute game wrecker like he has this season, and Shedeur Sanders coming in and playing pretty good at quarterback in his first game, if he can build on that one good game he's had in his one start on this 49ers defense that admittedly is pretty beat up right now, they have a shot here to keep it competitive. Brock Purdy's going to have to play very well against a really good Browns defense, and CMC's going to have to be a catalyst once again in this game. He leads the league in receptions as a running back, which is insane that it's not a wide receiver, or even a tight end for that matter. It's a running back. He leads the team in rushing yards and receiving yards, I'm pretty sure. So the Browns are going to have to game plan around containing Christian McCaffrey. They're going to have to game plan around not letting Brock Purdy just do these short 5-6 yard passes every play to get them to get a first down and continue drives going down the field. That's how you lose the time of possession battle, and ultimately losing the time of possession battle a lot of the time means you lose the game. So I think the 49ers walk out with a win, but this game stays close, I think, for most of it. I think that Browns defense is able to carry them to keep this game close. I think Shedeur is going to be able to take the offense down the field a couple of times. I think this game, fairly low scoring, maybe a 21-17 type game, but I do think the 49ers do come out with a win to stay in the NFC West division title race. The next game on the list, and I was correct earlier whenever I said I think the Colts play the Texans. That is the next game up. Texans are at Indianapolis this week. And I know the Colts are 8-3, and they have an electric offense. They just traded at the deadline for Sauce Gardner at corner to help their secondary. But we've seen time and time again, this Texans defense can slow down any offense this season. They have been playing incredible. They're the number one defense in yards per game for a reason. They know how to get after the quarterback. They can stop the run game like it's nothing. With Daniel Jones having an injury that's going to limit his mobility, I worry for the Colts here that they're going to drop a second straight game, and I worry losing 2 in a row is going to send them down a spiral and put them in jeopardy of losing the division. Now, on the flip side, with the Texans offense, they should be getting CJ Stroud back this week. I think he's still technically listed as questionable, but he's trending towards playing after missing a lot from a concussion. He's missed several games at this point. I don't know. Maybe getting your starting quarterback will give you enough life in the team to be like, oh, we have a shot here. They're still right there in the division as well with the Colts and the Jags. They're sitting right there at 6-5. If they win this game, bump them up to 7-5. They're right there with the Jags and the Colts. So, don't think this team's going to lie down and just let the Colts run all over them. I am going to pick the Texans to win this game. I think Daniel Jones not being able to be as mobile is going to be a huge part of the Texans defense being able to slow them down. Jonathan Taylor's been slowed down for a couple weeks in a row now. Give me the Texans to get the upset here. I don't necessarily believe in what I said that the Colts may spiral because of losing 2 in a row, and it just kind of sends them on this, skid going downhill. But yeah, I'm gonna pick the Texans to win this game in a close game. I wouldn't be surprised if it came down to a game-winning field goal to end the game. The next game on my list here is the Saints versus the Dolphins. I'm looking at Tua this game. The Saints defense has been shaky at times this season. And Tua's been playing some of his best ball recently. So, for this season, not for his career. He definitely has looked better in his career at points. But for this season, this is probably the best he's looked as of late. The Saints still have Tyler Shuck at quarterback, but they have Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave currently listed as questionable for this game. If one of them doesn't play or if both of them don't play, the offense is going to struggle mightily, I think, in this game. Now, the Saints defense is going to have to game plan around Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle. You're going to have to stop Achane, first of all, to put pressure on Tua to have to throw the ball. Because if Achane is having his way, the Dolphins are going to just run away with this game, and Achane is going to run for 150 yards. And I do think Achane cracks 1,000 total rush yards in this game. He's sitting at 900. I think he gets 100 yards on the ground this game at least to get him over that 1,000-yard hump. As far as winner for this game, give me the Dolphins to outduel the Saints. I think Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane have a good game behind Tua, being able to get the ball out of his hands to his receivers in play action and, rolling. I guess he's left-handed, so he'll roll to his left more than likely. Give me the Dolphins in this one. Next one up, Falcons versus Jets. This game sent shivers down my spine when I looked at it, and not in a good way. Both of these teams have had such a disappointing season compared to what they were thinking when they came into this season. Look at the Jets. They traded away Quinnen Williams, who beat the Chiefs yesterday with the Cowboys. Traded away Sauce Gardner, who is on a Super Bowl contending team with the Colts. Man, the Falcons are without Michael Penix for the rest of the year. Drake London looks like he's going to miss his second straight game with a knee injury. But that doesn't stop the fact that they have Bijan Robinson sitting in the backfield, who is a huge threat in the run game and a huge threat in the pass game. Now, the Jets offense, on the flip side, has been just horrid this whole season. Just terrible. Sitting 29th in yards per game. The defenses are neck and neck between these two teams as far as yards per game that they allow, and in all three categories, in total, pass, and rush yards, they're basically neck and neck. So give me the better offense for this game. So give me the Falcons, and I think it's going to be an ugly win. I really think this is going to be an ugly game that no one's going to really want to watch. And I have no intentions of watching it unless it pops up on Red Zone. The next game up, Cardinals versus Bucks. Now, Baker Mayfield is questionable with an AC joint sprain, so you have to think even if he does play, he's probably not going to be at 100%, which is concerning. I actually originally did pick the Cardinals to win this game until I saw their injury report, and man, half their team is on their injury report. That's a little concerning. Even if a lot of those people play, you have to think they may not be going at 100%. So, I imagine the Bucks lean a little harder on the run game this week with Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker. The Cardinals just, man, they keep finding ways to lose, whether it's blowing a lead late in the game or just getting blown out from the jump. I don't know. I do think I do think this game's close with both teams dealing with some injuries and key positions, but give me the Bucks. I almost changed my pick right here, right now, to the Cardinals. But give me the Bucks to get the win, and what is probably going to be a close game, just because of how many injuries each of these teams have. The next game up, Rams versus Panthers. I don't know if the Rams are going to lose another game this season until the playoffs. If they bring the same team that played against the Bucks last week, then Bryce Young and the Panthers don't have a shot in this game. Though they are playing for a big reason this week, and that is if they win this game and the Bucks lose, they're right there in the division. They're already fairly close, but if the Bucks were to lose this game, which is very possible with the injuries that they have, and the Panthers upset the Rams here, we have a battle for the NFC South. And Bryce Young's played fairly well this season. Ted McMillan has kind of come out of his shell as of late. He's played a lot better, but I don't know, man. That Rams offense has been scary good. If you're a betting person, put money on a Devontae Adams anytime touchdown. The dude doesn't know how to not score when he catches the ball. It's kind of crazy. Matthew Stafford, I expect him to continue his MVP caliber season. He's currently sitting at 30 passing touchdowns to 2 interceptions. That is absolutely incredible. If the Rams can shut down the Panthers' run game with Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, this game's a slaughter, I think. So I'm going to go with Stafford, Nakua, Adams, and the Rams to get the win in Carolina against the Panthers on the East Coast. The next game up, Vikings versus Seahawks. The Seahawks have looked like one of the best teams in the NFL as well, which, unfortunately for them, they're in the same division as the Rams, who have also looked like one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league. JSN has looked incredible. He catches every ball thrown to him, it feels like. I don't know. I feel like I can't pick J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings just because he's looked bad. Just flat out. I try and find a silver lining with quarterbacks, but I just can't seem to find it with J.J. McCarthy. I don't think I can pick this team. I don't think I can pick the Vikings to win another game the rest of the season unless I see some serious improvements quick. I think the Seahawks defense will feast on J.J. I think J.J. McCarthy throws 2 picks in this game. So, sorry for the short analysis on this one. I just think it's going to be a blowout. I think the Seahawks win this game with ease and cover whatever the spread is. I don't even know what it is, but I think they cover it. Give me the Seahawks. The next game up, Bills versus Steelers. So I brought up the Steelers earlier when I talked about Aaron Rodgers coming back to play from that wrist injury. I'm actually on the fence with this game. The Bills have been underwhelming recently, and the Steelers are on their way to go 9-8 like they seem to do every year. So it feels like they're due to lose here to go back down to 500. But Josh Allen has his eyes set on a bounce-back game after last Thursday against the Texans, where he had one of his worst games of his career, I would say. I think they need to feed James Cook the ball early, get the run game established, help Josh Allen out on play action to open up some receivers downfield. If they can do that, I think the Bills can win this game. Like I said, the Steelers are getting Aaron Rodgers back this week, which is a big boost to their offense. DK Metcalf has been an awesome addition for the team and has clearly become Aaron Rodgers' favorite target since joining the team. I do think DK will have a big game, but the Bills' defense has to lock in down the stretch because they have been a big issue recently for this Bills team, dropping to 7-4 or something like that. Largely due to the fact that the Bills' defense can't stop a team from going down the field and scoring. Look at the Texans. They went down the field and scored like it was nothing a few times. You can't do that going down the stretch. If TJ Watt can get to Josh Allen in this game, it could flip to a Steelers win. But I'm going to stick with the Bills to get the win and get back on track. The next game up, Raiders versus Chargers. I can't pick the Chargers. I can't pick the Raiders to win a game right now. They just do not look good in any phase, whether offense, defense, special teams. They just do not look good. The Chargers are coming off a much-needed bye, though that won't bring back Joe or Rashawn Slater on the offensive line. They are, however, getting closer to getting back their rookie running back, Omarion Hampton. at the end of the end stretch of the season here, which would be a huge boost to this team, I think, on offense, which will really help win them some games coming down the stretch while they're battling to get a wild card spot and battling to catch back up to the Broncos in the AFC West. So Justin Herbert's looked fantastic. He looked fantastic at the start of the season, but he's kind of struggled a bit here as of late. Not fully his fault. He's lost a couple of big pieces on the offensive line, obviously, like I just mentioned. He lost his running back that they drafted in the draft this year. That doesn't help him. Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Chargers. I said at the beginning, I just can't pick the Raiders. This is a perfect game to get right, coming off of a bye against a team who's reeling. Give me the Chargers to take care of business at home against the Raiders in what I expect to be a blowout. And that brings us to the end of the Sunday slate. Sunday Night Football. The Broncos take on the Commanders. Both these teams are coming off of a bye, but it is looking more and more like Jaden Daniels will be out this week as he continues to recover from an elbow injury. On the Broncos side, they're getting a huge piece back on what has already been an awesome defense so far this year. Reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain, is back as a full participant in practice after dealing with a pectoral injury back in Week 8 against the Cowboys. He should be good to go Sunday night, from what I've been hearing. The Broncos' offense has been incredibly inconsistent to the point that a lot of people are getting mad that they are so inconsistent. But coming off a bye, another get-right game for the Broncos here. The Commanders' defense reeling, sitting at 31st in total yards per game allowed. Bo Nix has his entire starting offense back, minus Ben Powers on the offensive line. So if he wants to silence the doubters, this is his chance right here against a reeling Commanders defense. Marcus Mariota for the Commanders, assuming he's going to get the start once again with Jaden Daniels being out, is in a tough spot being the backup. He has some experience with the first team now on offense, and that's great and all, but I don't know, he doesn't, I feel like he still doesn't quite have that chemistry with the first team like he does on the second team in practice and whatnot. He's going to need Terry McLaurin to have his best game of the season this year if they want to have a shot to even get points on the board against this defense. Their offense has been struggling heavily recently, largely due to the fact of their run game. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt has been shut down for weeks now. He's averaging less than 40 yards per game in the last 6 weeks. That is unacceptable to be a starting running back averaging less than 40 yards per game for 6 weeks. Yeah, if the Broncos could shut down the run game with their defense, give me the Broncos to win this game in a lopsided win. And then the last game of Week 13, closing us out on Monday Night Football. The New York Giants take on the New England Patriots. The Giants are getting Jackson Dart back, like I mentioned earlier. But man, this Patriots team's playing like one of the best in the league. Drake May is having a great season, MVP caliber. He's in the MVP race. And he's got Travion Henderson in the backfield, who has just come out of nowhere this season with Ramondre Stevenson going down. Vrabel's been a great coach for them. He's definitely in the running for Coach of the Year. They do have a challenge this week, though, with Jackson Dart coming back. Wan'Dale Robinson's coming off of a great game as well against the Lions with Jameis Winston at quarterback. He had over 130 yards receiving and a touchdown, I believe. Dart and Robinson could be an issue if Christian Gonzalez has an extremely rare off game. I don't think that's the case. The Patriots offense is missing Will Campbell. He was placed on IR this past week. And they have listed their left guard, Jared Wilson, as doubtful. So missing 2 offensive linemen might make things a little bit more challenging than Drake May is ready for this week. But that being said, I'm gonna take the better team here. Give me the Patriots to get the win and hold on to that 1 seed for now. Yeah, they control their own destiny at this point. You keep winning, the 1 seed is in your grasp. I believe for them. You drop a game, then you're looking at Denver potentially getting the 1 seed. The Colts could potentially get the 1 seed if they win out. Yeah, give me the better team. Give me the Patriots to get the win. And that is the end of the Week 13 slate. Like I said at the beginning, this was a jam-packed episode full of stuff covering the games yesterday and then covering all the games that are upcoming on Sunday and Monday. If you guys have any gripes about the picks that I make, if you think that I made some really dumb picks, let me know in the comments. I don't know. I feel like I made some odd choices here this week, but I feel like we're getting to that point in the season where we may have some upsets that knock people out of playoff contention. And if you're curious about teams that are on the brink of being eliminated from the playoffs, check out my video on Wednesday. I went over all the teams that could be eliminated this week. I didn't go over every scenario, but there are a handful of teams that could be eliminated this week from the playoffs if things don't go their way. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in and watching this episode of the One Man Huddle. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys on Monday to cover everything that happens today for the Black Friday game and on Sunday. See you guys then.